Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode. So we're back in Magic Towers Resort today. So just for a little bit of information, I did actually graduate, so that hopefully means that I can get back into the swing of things again a little bit more while I am working towards getting myself a job because I'm now done with studying. Alright, enough though about me. Let's actually talk about the park. Because right now we are looking at the theme park, of course, but in the previous episode we were working on the hotel. Now the hotel isn't finished yet, so I'd like to continue working on that just a little bit more. Expand it a little bit, add some details all around, add the panoramic restaurant here at the back that I have in mind. And maybe touch up some other areas inside of the park as well. However, before I jump into things, there is something that I'd like you to think about and maybe comment on as well. Because I did a poll on what we should work on after this very episode, and most of you guys wanted me to work on the next theme park area. So here's the question: what kind of theme would you like to see for the next theme park area? Because currently I don't have a whole lot of ideas yet, but if there are some cool ideas or you guys, agree on what you'd like to see, then maybe we can go in that direction. So definitely let me know what you have in mind for the theme park, and then we can maybe start working on that in the very next episode. Anyways, though, first we're gonna go back to the hotel. So let's jump right back into the time lapse. Welcome back to Magic Towers Resort. Alright, it's so good to be working on the park again. Now, first of all, I had a comment on my last video saying that the parking lot for the hotel was a bit illogical because of all the dead ends and things like that. So I really quickly wanted to fix that by making some roads on the side that just connect some parts back up together again. The comment made a little sense, and I probably should have done that beforehand. I just felt like it would take up too much space and kind of take away from the shape, which it kind of does, but just again for the realism, it definitely helps to have those roads there to guide the cars back around if they have to. Now, now that we have the parking lot fixed, we can start working on the monorail. Now, the monorail, so far, I kind of forgot about it, but I really wanted to connect it up to the hotel. And I kind of initially forgot about doing that, so we're gonna do it right now. And luckily I still wanted to expand the hotel just a little bit, so we can kind of make use of that expansion and kind of connect it up over there, because I do want the monorail to be like connected right up to the hotel itself, just to make sure that the guests from the hotel can very easily get to the park or to some of the other destinations in the resort, just to kind of make sure that they can get around more quickly. Also, don't worry about that piece of the hotel there that I kind of connected up a little bit shifted to the left. It's not completely straight, but I think it kind of adds to the entire shape of the hotel. I probably shouldn't have said that because some people are gonna, feel very frustrated by that. Don't worry, it's gonna be fine. Next up, I had this flat wall here, but that's kind of where I want the station to be. So initially I kind of had this round shape in mind, but I figured that that didn't really support the idea of a monorail station being there. I would have to make a separate building to make that work, or kind of make it go through the hotel or something like that. That were some of the ideas that we're having right now. I initially just decided to kind of scrap the idea of having that round or kind of diagonal shaped end there at the end, and instead just make a simple monorail station that's just basically connected to the hotel itself and kind of has the same style as the hotel itself, and more importantly the lobby, just to kind of reflect the same architecture, just to make it sure that it actually looks like it's part of the hotel instead of it just being some kind of weird attachment, which was an afterthought, which wouldn't be the case, I think, for this park. So in the end, the hotel ends up being pretty large, maybe a little bit larger than it would make sense to be given the size of the map. Because right now, if you look at the entire map from a far away view, the hotel definitely takes up a lot of space. I think it is fine though. In the end, we're just gonna add another water park, add some themed areas to the theme park itself, add just a few more hotels. So I think in terms of space, it's fine for the hotels to be just a little bit on the large side, maybe compared to the parks. Actually, I haven't really looked into this, how like the size of a large hotel compares to the size of a theme park, but maybe it's actually fine. Because right now it might just be like half. No, like yeah, maybe half of the theme park in terms of the size. Anyway, so that might be something to look into or kind of think about. I didn't really research that. But it might actually be logical now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah, that's something to keep in mind for sure. Now, the next stops for the monorail are going to connect up to some of the other hotels, to the water park. We'll maybe make a hotel entrance, or at least an entrance to the theme park for the hotel guest at the back of the park as well. So we might have a monorail stop there as well. And that way, eventually, we can finally actually close the loop and start actually running it, which is going to be pretty fun, I think, to kind of see these guests moving around. Now, in the previous episode, one thing I did with the hotel is place some t-shirt stalls inside of the hotel, right next to the right next to the pool, basically. In the hopes that, you know, guests would get a t-shirt there, and I would make the t-shirt kind of like skin-colored, like a skin-colored color for the peeps, and just kind of make it look like they're in their swimwear. However, I'm now starting to notice an issue where basically anyone who's at the hotel is no longer wearing a t-shirt now, and in the park, I'm starting to see like maybe a quarter of the people are not wearing a shirt anymore either. So I'm not sure how to fix that, because once they get a shirt, I don't think they'll get a new shirt with a different color. So I might need to fix that and remove the shirt stall after all, or something like that. So in the meantime, I'm just working on the gardens for the hotel, like kind of around all of the rooms. You know, just so the guests have a nice place to walk around in outside if they want. Obviously, they can walk inside of the hotel as well, but it might be nicer, you know, depending on the weather, to go outside as well. And I'm also placing some more trees just to kind of hide the highway that is right next to the hotel. Probably also helps with the sound. That's something that we want to keep in mind as well. Of course, the highway is going to produce quite a little bit of sound. And that might be less comfortable for the guests that are staying here. So we want to make sure that we kind of, you know, obscure that sound a little bit. You can do that with some sound walls and things like that. You can also just do that with some nature or hills and things like that. So it really depends on how you want it to look and how much space you want to spend on it to get that done. Now, again, the pool for the hotel also needed a little bit more vegetation, but I think it looks good as it is right now. Now, next up is the Panoramic restaurant. So this was an idea that I had right from the very start. It was basically like this half a circle kind of restaurant where you have a very nice view outside of the hotel. So to pull this off, I used some track from the wooden coaster track, just to get this very round shape, and then I ended up using the glass walls just to make the windows, you know, just so you can actually see like, okay, people are gonna have an amazing view here. But to get the diagonal bits working, I actually made the ground sloped, and it's basically like a little optical illusion because these glass walls are actually zigzagging. But if you do it properly, you can actually make it appear as if they are diagonal glass walls. So that's a trick that you can keep in mind. As long as you have the space to actually obscure the other angles, you can very easily get diagonal walls and fences for just about any kind of texture that you want. So that's a pretty neat trick, and I think it works really well in the end, especially once I remove all the support. You can really see that there are only like a few little hints that is not actually a diagonal wall, but it would definitely pass as one. So that's a pretty cool little trick. Now for the most outer ring there at the roof, I decided to go with a different kind of track type just to make it a little bit thinner, just to make sure that you see the window just a little bit more, because otherwise it was completely hiding the window and you couldn't really see that anymore. And I think seeing that window is very important to kind of get the idea that that is actually a restaurant that has a panoramic view basically. So I want to make sure that you could still see that. Though I guess compared to the peep sizes, that window would be like 3 stories large, so that might not be the most realistic. But of course we also have to keep in mind how it looks from this isometric angle that Rollercoaster Tycoon 2 has. So we want to keep that in mind at the same time as well, just to make it aesthetically pleasing, right? Now next up, some more vegetation. Just some basic vegetation around the pool area, just to make sure that it doesn't look barren. Because in the end, I'm hoping to kind of fill up every single area in such a way that you can see that I actually looked into that and actually spent some time on decorating it. So even some of the larger empty fields of grass, for instance, we just want to make sure that there are some bushes on there, things like that. Just some little details to make sure that it actually looks a little bit real, not like an empty space. Which will very quickly turn it into like a sandbox looking type of landscape. So here I'm adding some tables and some seats just to kind of sell that restaurant idea. And I also added some additional underground paths. Again, I've told this before, but if you're having trouble with your peeps getting lost and things like that, you really have to think about like, okay, what if the entrance or exit to the park is like Earth, and every peep is like through gravity being pulled towards that. Where can the peeps get stuck if you do that? Those are the areas where you want to have bypass connections to other paths to solve that, because you kind of need this gravity to be able to pull these guests towards the entrance, because to be quite frank, that's kind of how the pathfinding AI works. It's basically like gravity. So if you have a very long dead end leading towards the entrance, then they're gonna be stuck there for a long time if it is a double path, because if it's just a single path, they will just walk back. But if it's a very wide path, then that won't happen. So people will often say to not go with wide paths, but you can definitely do that if you want to. You just have to make sure that they don't get stuck in these areas. And right now, I think I only have like 10 peeps who are lost in the entire park, so I think that's definitely very good. You can see the park rating as well, it's at the very maximum, so the peep satisfaction is not an issue at all, and that is not something to really worry about. Now for these gardens, I just try to place some trees and things like that with an occasional flower garden a little bit. Because you wouldn't want to fill the entire thing up with flowers, because it requires a lot of maintenance from the garden guys. So you want to make sure that you kind of keep it limited and really make it pop in a few areas where you actually want it to be. And I decided to kind of go for this idea where you have different kind of flower patches that are right next to the path that you can kind of walk through. So you kind of have like different kind of things that you can discover, and I quite like that. I have seen things like that at some parks, not theme parks, but like actual like nature parks, and I think it's pretty effective. Now next up, an issue that I suddenly thought about during my little break is that the Mine Train coaster does not have a transfer track, so it's impossible to actually take off a train if you need to, and you definitely have to. If you have more than one train running, you need the ability to be able to remove a train without too much effort, because otherwise you're gonna have to close the entire ride if a train breaks down or something like that. So to solve that, I just decided to use this little bit of space here right before the station for a proper transfer track with 5 little sheds that the trains can go into, because we do have 5 trains running, so it makes sense to have 5 sheds for that, just so maintenance can be done on them, or they can be stored there if the park is a little less busy and doesn't actually need 5 trains to be running on this roller coaster. So that was an important detail that I definitely forgot about. Come to think of it, now that I'm thinking about it, the Atlantis coaster, I don't think it has a transfer track either. So we're gonna have to add that there, because that's running a lot of vehicles as well. Alright, yeah, I definitely missed a few aspects here and there, I think. We'll have to come back to the Atlantis one, maybe in the next episode. I already have an idea of where we can maybe place that, so we'll look into that in the next episode. So yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with the store shed, how it ended up being. Looks pretty nice. Just some doors, just to kind of shut it and hide it away. Now, next up, this is a bit that I had a little bit of trouble with, but this was being recommended by a lot of you, that I would actually add some hot tubs to the pool. Now, I wanted to use the Virginia Rail vehicles for that, but quite frankly, I haven't done a lot of this kind of stuff yet, where you try to get a vehicle in a certain spot and just keep it there just as scenery, basically. So I couldn't really remember how to do that. In the end, I found that it was really easy. Because obviously, if you have a ride with multiple stations, and it is block sectioned, a vehicle is going to spawn at every single station. So I ended up kind of just deciding that I would just place a bunch of station in a closed loop, and just open the ride and then close it before the vehicles were able to leave. And that just allows me to have like a few vehicles there that are going to be stationary and not going to be moving. The ride is closed, so nothing's going to happen to it. These vehicles are just going to stay there. And after that, you can set the track type to Crooked House, and that will just make the track invisible. And then you can set the station theming to invisible as well. Just completely hide that, and now you're just left with some hot tubs. Which then ended up obscuring with some trees and things like that, just to, kind of give some privacy to the people who are staying in the hot tubs. I think that might be nice. Obviously, we're gonna have to keep an eye on that, because we don't want to get the people to be too frisky in there. Back to filling up the rest of the area though, because right now we have a pretty good portion of the park actually filled, and that also means that we have a few spots where we didn't really do much yet, because it's kind of in between different parts. Most importantly, the parking lot and the hotel, the area between that just has some infrastructure right now, but I didn't really put a lot of time and effort into the vegetation yet. So that's what we're going for right here, just kind of filling in those details, filling up some of the empty patches, just to make sure that it looks like, that it actually looks like some work was put into it, or at least that it is a real area. Because just having an empty field with grass, like I said earlier, is not really what I wanted to go for. So we're just gonna, put down some trees to hide some of the backstage aspects from the highway. Just to make sure that you don't look straight into it. Gonna add some random shrubbery just to some of the empty fields, because obviously we don't want everything to be just one big forest. There's gonna be tons of empty spots as well. Just want to make sure that it looks natural. Because not everything needs to be maintained, of course, and not everything needs to be a perfect garden. And it really shouldn't be, because that's going to be a lot of maintenance to actually keep that all up. So that's not very realistic if you're going to try and keep everything looking as if it is maintained. And especially in these like outer areas, we really don't need to maintain everything up to the single shrub. Here though, I didn't want to go with just trees. I wanted to make a bit of a sound wall, basically, from the highway, because I didn't have trees here yet. I didn't want the trees to go too high. I figured the sound wall, using a hill, would be a bit more effective in terms of actually blocking the sound. So I just went with a hill with some lower vegetation on it, just to make sure that we can actually make it not sound too loud. Now, we're almost at the end of the video already, so I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Do let me know in the comments what you would like to see for the next episode, because I'm very curious what kind of themes you guys have in mind. Anyway, so that's about it, and thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe and like the video if you liked it. It helps other people discover these videos as well. Anyways, that's it. See you guys in the next one. Bye bye.